Dr. Anna, it's my crashing fatigue mid-afternoon. I feel like I need a nap. It's these hot flashes, whew, that are unbearable. It's the weight gain without doing anything different. It's my sleep. I sleep. I'm trying to get a certain number of hours of sleep, but I wake and I don't feel rested. And I feel like I could just stay in bed. It's the PMS symptoms. And you may be experiencing PMS symptoms well after your period stopped. Like what's going on? The mood swings, irritability, anxiety, a sense of discontent or anhedonia, lack of pleasure in your life, and feeling like, oh my gosh, like I cannot continue to live this way. And not to mention a decrease in drive, a decrease in desire for intimacy, a sense that you're stepping back from the quality in your life, or that things now appear to be in shades of gray instead of technicolor, full vibrancy. There can be the memory loss and the brain fog. And these are so many of the questions that come up, or the comments that come up as women are joining my Magic Menopause program. And I'm reading through the intake forms, what brought them here, what their health issues have been, what their concerns in their lives, relationship, their social networks are, and their professionalism and their passions and their purposes. And it really does inspire me to continue sharing this message, to continue sharing, number one, where I was 20 years ago. It's hard to imagine at 38 when I was well over 240 pounds. I had hair loss, fatigue, depression, mood swings, but I was probably like many of you, powering through the day, continuing to wear the many hats of, for me, it was doctor, physician, boss, um, daughter, mother, wife, all of those different occupations for just one person, all those different hats for just one head. And it can feel overwhelming. And I hear that comment a lot. I feel overwhelmed. I feel scattered. I feel inefficient. I feel like I've lost my edge. And I'm here to tell you now at 58, that's my age now, 58 at the time of this recording, that you don't have to feel that way. And there's so many things that happen early on in the perimenopause. So in our 30s and 40s, that, time leading up to menopause, that create the first signpost that we are struggling. And sometimes we don't even realize how bad we're feeling till we really start feeling good again. And so today's guest is a dear friend of mine, Mariza Snyder. She has been working in the field helping women. She started with essential oils, and she started working as a functional women's health practitioner. And because number one of her own struggles, of the struggles she saw her mother going through, and she's now focused on really naturally empowering women in perimenopause, and she's been doing it for over 15 years. She herself is a mother and a wife, and has her own story. So I look forward to sharing Dr. Mariza Snyder with you today. So join me in welcoming her. Here she comes.
All day. I miss you already.
Welcome, Mariza, to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. It is so good to see you again.
Dr. Anna, honey, it is always a pleasure. I love you so much.
Well, and I think this is the third time you're on the Girlfriend Doctor Show. It is I've known you what for a decade,
A
and I
decade.
have just seen you blossom and sharing your message and having a baby, and oh my gosh, a lot's been going on in your life.
It's
So
been a full
today
life.
we're going to be digging into perimenopause and how to help women in the state, like when their hormones are starting to go out of whack. And you've got your own story, and I would love for you to share that too with our audience.
Yeah, so I decided to do perimenopause and postpartum at the exact same time. And I think every single one of us, even practitioners who have taken care of women in perimenopause, I think we all think that we have more time than we do. And I thought, you know what? I probably will have a decent little window between postpartum. It kind of feels like a default state of menopause in its own right. Your progesterone and estradiol are low, but thank goodness for the oxytocin in that first year of postpartum. And for the most part, I mean, sleep deprivation and trying to, get my body more metabolically where I want it to be was intentional. And I think I had a probably one solid good year where I felt energized. My son was 1.5. I was like, okay, I got this. I'm 42 years old, and I don't know, maybe I kind of pushed perimenopause back a little bit. But then I stepped into 2003 last year. I just turned 43. And I remember when my dearest friends, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, I hired her personal trainer here in Encinitas, California. And I signed up for 40 sessions because I told her, like, I want to really build that lean muscle. Now it's time. Kingston's almost two. It's time, right? He actually was two. And I remember working those, maybe halfway through those sessions, and I felt like I was getting obliterated. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe this is my thyroid, because I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I had had it in remission, but maybe it was like I kicked it up because I've overworked out in the past. This has been a toxic trait of mine. And I thought, oh no, maybe I'm doing it again. And so I remember, when you start going down all the rabbit holes, because you're like, what is going on with me? I started gaining weight. I started feeling low resilience. I had no energy. I couldn't function. My brain wasn't working. I started getting really moody and irritated. And I thought, let me pick the thing that I've had issues with in the past. And 9 months of this, along with a couple major concussions, I come out on the other side. And after I ran labs 3 different times, I'm looking at everything, I'm looking at all my biomarkers. And finally, after 3 months of having perimenopausal rage, the same exact time, every single month, I was like, you're in perimenopause, Mariza. That is what's going on with you. And so I got a good solid year between postpartum and finally heading into peri. And honestly, my hormones didn't really calibrate. They kind of just went from one big state, one big hormone shift into the next hormone shift. And I cannot tell you how much compassion and empathy I've always had for women. But when it became deeply personal, I was like, this really needs to be my mission. I don't ever want women to feel like I have felt the last 9 months.
That is, I mean, and you're not alone, right? This happens to many of us over the time and just thinking, okay, I know something's wrong, but what's going on? What were some of the biomarkers that you were looking at that were like, aha?
So I was looking predominantly, one, my thyroid biomarkers were out of range. I had antibodies. I chose to breastfeed my son for 2.5 years. Actually, it was only due to my brain injuries that I had to stop because I had to get on higher doses of progesterone. I got on low dose naltrexone. I got on some things to really lower my level of inflammation, particularly my brain inflammation. And I remember making that choice, or maybe it was a sacrifice. I had seen that I had no progesterone. I had never recovered it. And I knew that once I started taking it again, I was most likely going to lose my ability to breastfeed my son. And so that biomarker, she had been gone. She'd been disappeared from my life. And I knew that she was not coming back. But I also, as a mom, I was like, okay, how long can I get away with breastfeeding my son before I need to bring in the bioidentical progesterone? And turns out it was 2.5 years. So I knew that that was happening. The other thing that I had my eyes on was my C reactive protein, my highly C reactive protein. It had always been way below 1, but it was hovering at 1.9. And although 1.9 isn't crazy, it wasn't my normal. So I had my eyes on that. Other markers that were out of range besides my antibodies and my thyroid, obviously my cortisol levels were completely deregulated. Again, no progesterone. Estradiol, she was hanging on the cliff. And so I had, but for the most part, it was my inflammation markers that were most concerning to me.
Were you watching your FSH and LH? Were you looking at those numbers?
Yes, those were still low. So, I think still being an early peri, yeah, I'm still cycling. It did take me, for any mama who breastfeeds a long time, it took me until my son was a little over a year and a half to even get my cycle back.
Mhm.
So, so I feel like I was recalibrating my cycle for a little bit before I kind of realized, oh, this isn't postpartum anymore. This is now perimenopause. So there was probably only a 6 or 7 month period where my cycle was pretty consistent without like dropping in numbers before I realized, oh, I'm hopping from one thing to the next.
Yeah, and I hear you. And I was 41 when I had
Yeah.
Ava, almost 42. And It's the added challenges, right? The added challenges, and it's awesome that you breastfed too. That's such good oxytocin, right? It's so good for the baby, but it's so good for you too. So, and 2.5 years, that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
really amazing, and that's a lot. You
Yeah.
run a company, you're busy, and you've got all
I
these
was so
things going, the
committed.
writing books, and
I think
it,
for me, the attachment for my son was so important. And I thought, because I was feeling so good for a while there, I thought, maybe I could keep pushing this. Like, and, my intention was to really breastfeed him until he was 3. But then, like I said, the double concussions that I had really didn't allow for it. And so I remember when I had to make that decision on July 4th. It was because I had just come out. I've got a CT scan, make sure that I didn't have major damage to my brain. And I was diagnosed with post concussion syndrome. And I knew that this was a very serious matter. And I remember having to make that really hard decision to stop breastfeeding him. I also knew he was going to be fine. Obviously, he had been eating food for a long time. It was more comfort than anything. But yeah, it was a little bit of a mourning and grieving moment because it kind of happened without permission. And I think
oh,
that's what perimenopause is a lot. I always think, that's how I talk about perimenopause is nobody's asking for it per se. Like we're never saying, hey, you know what? I'm ready for this. Let's sign me up. Like your body is changing without permission. And it's a major recalibration, not only for the brain, but for a lot of systems of the body. And so I've given myself so much extra grace, and more importantly, I've given myself permission to be okay with reprioritizing and recalibrating how I live my life. Like I don't get to, I have, I get to not always play full out, I guess you could say. There were years where you could just do it. You could do all of it. And you didn't have to ask questions. You didn't have to check in with your body. You didn't have to negotiate. And now today, my body's like, oh no, you will negotiate with me. You only have so much energy bandwidth. Let's work this out. What do you have energy for? And so I think that has been humbling at times, but also I think deeply empowering as well, because I get to be so clear about my deepest priorities and non-negotiables.
and oftentimes it's our own personal story that pushes us into one area of expertise or not. And this certainly is your area of expertise. Now, when I first met you, you were really, and you've written books, and one specifically on essential oils. So, in integrating essential oils and holistic care, and first, I want you to talk about some of that and how we can use it in perimenopause. Because again, it's a natural process, but sometimes it's not natural. It is a toxic process, and it feels very toxic to our bodies. But little shifts that we can make can shift us right back into balance.
Yeah. I mean, again, at the end of the day, our hormones are shifting and they are declining. That is the name of perimenopause. And it can be a 10-year transition. This isn't something, when we think about an autoimmune condition, or we think about cardiovascular disease, or we think about pre-diabetes or insulin resistance. That's a problem we can tackle. We could say, okay, here's the protocol. These are the things I want you to do. Let's walk this thing back. But perimenopause is a transition. It's a transitionary time. It is a real transition, just like puberty, except that it's a higher stakes game. Now I'm not just going to school with my friends with my backpack. Like I got a child to take care of. I got family to tend to. I've got a business to run. Like it's a lot more going on, and it can feel so destabilizing. And so what I've anchored into is the daily decisions that I make every day. Like at the end of the day, this transition can go, I always say you're at a fork in a road. It can go one way or the other. And one thing that you and I both say is that menopause is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I do believe that with perimenopause, it's very much the same thing. Like we get to choose how we want to feel. And if we're not feeling okay in our body, if we're not feeling this, like not feeling like ourselves, we get to pivot. This is the defining moment that we get to decide, how do I want this to go? And so how do I want the second half of my life to go? And so I believe that it's a lot about the daily decisions that you make that compound over time. And so for me, it's a lot of self-care. It's being out in nature. It's walking after meals. It's a lot of oxytocin with my son, cuddling with him in bed. It's connecting with my besties like we did for like 30 minutes before we started on this. It's drinking water with electrolytes, but also it's about I believe creating rituals that we love and that bring us so much joy. And so for me, the way that I think about essential oils is that they accentuate those rituals. So if it's meditation or yoga, using oils before you get started, or if it's, taking a walk, putting on an energizing oil to feel a little bit more alive in your body. Also, if you're feeling more irritated or moody or just stuck, you can use an oil to literally shift your mood and change your state. And not that there aren't wonderful strategies to do that, like breath work and movement, but man, aromatherapy is so profound to shift you in an instant. So anytime I'm feeling irritated by my husband Alex chewing or gulping water, I swear to goodness, that man gulps water like a camel. And, those moments, I'm like, you know what? Let me go grab an oil so I don't kill him right now for drinking water.
That
So
is so
that's how I
funny.
think about oils.
No, I love it. What are some of your favorites in perimenopause?
So I would say peppermint. So one of the most profound things that happen to us is our brain completely changes. And that has a lot to do with neurotransmitter changing. Hormones are not binding to those receptor sites in the brain. We have glucose metabolism shifting in the brain as well. And so 8 out of the 10 most common symptoms of perimenopause are brain related, or
Right?
irritability, mood swings, brain fog, a lack of word recall, even vasomotor symptoms, sleep issues, a lack of stress resilience, brain, right? And so, like, right before I got on this interview with you, I wanted to be so sharp and so clear and really direct that message. I'm like, okay, girl, come on, brain, did you show up today or not? And so I'll put peppermint on behind my ears and on my neck, and it just wakes me up along with rubbing it on my hands. So I do that. I also use a lot of oils because I know a lot of women like myself are dealing with neuromuscular skeletal stuff. So I'll put on wintergreen, or I will put on peppermint, frankincense to kind of help support my neck and my muscles there, just from the tension of stress. I love lavender before bed. Everybody gets lavender. My son is so used to oils before bed. He's almost 4 years old now. And so he calls it his sleepy oil, his little sleepy blend. And we have owie blends and we have immunity blends. We have all the things because I love using kind of that kind of um, natural, I don't like natural medicine, but these beautiful remedies that are so safe and that are easy to use for him, because he really associates, being healthy with like, oh, we can use these things at home that really help support and boost our immune system. So I use those for us. But I love lavender, clary sage, rose oil for bedtime. I also love to wear them to really just, I love how, like, again, how they make me feel. So jasmine is a personal favorite. I love wild orange. I love bergamot. Bergamot is known as the oil of self-love and self-acceptance, and I love smelling that. And so those are the things I'm always thinking about: mood. I'm thinking about brain function. I'm thinking about, connecting with rituals. I'm thinking about sleep. Sleep is such a major issue for so many of us. And I believe that our brain really does well with anchoring, whether it's aroma or, different types of rituals that anchor your brain in knowing that it's time to go to bed. And so when my brain breathes lavender, it's like, oh, okay, we're getting ready. We're doing this thing called sleep. And so I have my supplements, I have my oils, I've got my book, and that registers to my brain that I got about 30 minutes to shut it down. So I love that. The more that we can anchor into these healthy habits and behaviors with something as easy as an oil, I think we find ourselves just effortlessly making these changes that are supporting our body.
And making it easy for us, right?
Yeah.
So, in addressing these symptoms, especially sleep, mood, energy, relaxation, all of that's key. And creating a ritual where it's easy to use and incorporate, like putting an essential oil by your toothbrush, for instance. So, after you brush your teeth at night, you've added that, or, you've added that to your ritual. And one thing I love is eucalyptus in my shower.
Ooh,
It's like
yeah.
that eucalyptus in my shower is so good. And you mentioned,
Energizing.
yeah,
Yeah.
two of my favorite essential oils are frankincense and bergamot as well. I love them. They just do the trick for me. And I think that's also true with essential oils, is being able to see some you'll resonate with and some you won't. So paying attention to that too. Maritza, when I was in India this summer, we went to this open market, and there's like thousands. I really like thousands of vendors, spices, herbs, tons of chili, peppers. My eyes were watering, and all the scents and aromas. And we went to this essential oil booth that is just like the purest essential oils too. And it was beautiful to listen to them to listen to the vendor talk about the essential oils and the origins and how long, I mean, thousands and thousands of years of use. And one of the favorites and one that I got from there was jasmine. It's just so
Oh,
sexy.
it's so
Jasmine's
sexy. I
sexy,
love
it's
it.
attractive, a little bit goes, a pure jasmine goes a long way. And again, that, resonated with me. And I just, I think of those, all the essential oils, the jasmine and the pure rose, that's also very romantic too. And not just visually beautiful, but the smell, the essence. So how that resonates with you. It's another beautiful essential oil. So I think there's so much naturally we can do in creating these rituals that serve us. And so thinking about sleep and focusing on
Yeah.
sleep, especially in perimenopause when our progesterone levels are dropping, and even before adding progesterone, some things that we can do to increase that deep, restful sleep.
Yes, I have some wonderful. I am also a big fan of bioidentical progesterone for sleep
Yes,
too. But I think one is honoring our circadian rhythm. And so, and that is our eating cycles, our sleep cycles. We think about cortisol being that daytime hormone and melatonin coming up for the evening, our evening hormone, and they create a beautiful dance. But if we're not honoring that beautiful
rhythm.
circadian rhythm, then it's gonna get a little messy. And so my recommendation, I always say sleep starts the moment you get outside in the morning. So getting outside, getting sunshine into those retinas, no sunglasses, at least 5 minutes if the sun is out, up to 10 to 15 minutes if the sun is kind of hiding. It's still we're at the coast. And I know you and I just came from 112-degree weather, and it is literally 68 and it is misty outside still because we're right at the ocean. And so I've spent, 10, 20 minutes outside just trying to get the sunshine on my eyes this morning. And then as you head into that evening, as the sunset is happening, it's going to be really important to, again, eat as much as you can when the sun is still out around sunset, or at least 3 hours before bed. That's going to have a profound impact on your sleep and your metabolic health. And then as you're winding into the 2 hours prior, it's an easy thing to shift, like dim the lights in the house, make them a little bit more amber in color. You can buy lights that do that. We do that in our house. We dim everything, the bathrooms, Kingston's room, our room, even the kitchen. And so we gear up for that technology. We're off our phones about an hour before bed. But the most important thing I tell women is to go to bed at the same time every single night. And remember, we're not 20 or 30 anymore. Like, you can't just race. I remember being in college, I would just run into bed and then just expect myself to fall asleep. Like, that is not, you got to really whine and no whining, no wine here, but like you got to like coax your body into sleep. And so, like I said, anchoring, I kick off my sleep routine with supplements. I take my magnesium. I have a couple other things that I take before bed to support me. And then that's an hour prior to bed. And at that point, I protect my sleep routine like it is $1 million meeting. So if my husband comes up to me and he wants to talk about work or about logistics for my son the next day, I was like, oh, you missed your window, buddy.
Mhm.
Catch me in the morning. Like, I am in this routine. And the only thing that's going to get me up is if my child needs me for some reason. Like, that is the only thing. And so I get to my room, I do my thing, I take my supplements. I have my progesterone by my bedside too. So I have that ready to go. I've got my lavender oil. I've got the book that I'm reading. I'm so into romantic fantasy books right now. And I can, I got a lot of those I can recommend. And I am just in my routine. Like, I've got all the things set up. So I'm in bed by 8:45. I'm asleep before 10 p.m. And I am consistent every single night, unless there's a rare exception. And then I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning, same time, and I just do the thing. I'm so consistent about it. And what I learned, especially with my brain injury last summer, is the biggest lever that made the most profound difference every single day was whether or not I was getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night. If I was getting less than eight, it felt like someone had scrambled my brain that next day, and I felt like I really couldn't function. But if I got enough sleep, I felt like I could actually function in my day. And so that was probably one of the greatest lessons that I got from my head injury was how mission critical sleep was. I know that if people are sleep deprived, like they'll get less than 5 hours of sleep 4 to 5 nights in a row, you can actually put yourself into prediabetes.
Oh, hey,
That's
I'm
how
a
severe.
OBGYN. I know.
Yeah.
I was there. I was there waking up. I remember when I went to GYN only from being OBGYN. I mean, I used to get 23 calls a night. I used to get 23 calls a night. And then I was getting, one or less, no calls a night. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my life shifted. And sometimes you're so in it, you don't realize how
How bad it is.
dysfunctional that
Yeah.
is until you're out of it again. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really powerful. One of the things, like talk about progesterone. I use my balance cream with progesterone and pregnenolone, but I put in essential oils. The lemongrass oil, this is funny about
Oh,
formulators,
yummy.
but the lemongrass oil is because, when I formulated it in Southeast Georgia, mosquitoes are a big issue, and lemongrass oil gets rid of mosquitoes. So you're thinking
It does.
sun rises, sun sets, you think mosquitoes in Southeast Georgia or in Texas here. And lemongrass oil is another really, another good
It is.
one.
It's good. There's some great ones for, and I would think of lemon eucalyptus, citronella, lemongrass oil, eucalyptus on its own, peppermint. Those are great for bugs in the South for sure. And it's
Yeah.
something that's super natural. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think it's really the how intentional and disciplined I've been about sleep has made the biggest difference. And really making sure that when the sun is out, I'm getting lots and lots of sun on my skin and in my eyes. And then when the sun is down, I'm really honoring that process as well. I know that it's not always easy, especially so many mamas out there who are trying to juggle it all and take care of all the kids and get the laundry folded and the dishwasher unloaded after everyone's in bed. But when it comes to sleep, I don't know if there's anything more mission critical than ensuring that we get it. It has such a profound impact on our metabolic health, our cardiovascular health, our brain health. And so if there's one thing that you can shore up, it is getting outside in nature as much as possible and being just again adamant about that sleep routine, and then adding other things in, like I said, the progesterone cream, whatever you can do. If I want to knock myself out, I just take 200 milligrams of progesterone and call it a night.
Right, right. And sometimes people need more. Now you're still in
Yes.
perimenopause, right? Like,
Yeah.
how are you feeling now? Like, and I just see you glowing and radiating. And this is the state of life we want to go through menopause in, right? Continuing to glow,
Yeah.
navigating those shifts.
Yeah. Anna, honey, it's a yes and. Like if you took a look at my metabolic biomarkers, my inflammatory markers, you would say, chef's kiss. Like they look good. And overall, I feel very alive. But I will say, even with the progesterone, I can get a bit moody and irritated and a little ragey. I'm not going to lie. So the mood changes and the brain changes have taken me a little bit off guard. And I am, I build a lot into really navigating that with as much grace as possible. So when I know that I'm at late luteal or like 7 days out from my period, because I'm still cycling, I'm about a 26-day cycle, give or take. I let my husband know. I let everybody know. I'm like, so listen, we're heading into the zone. And I just, yeah, I try to buffer my schedule so I have more time to myself. I've got more walking solo time to myself. I connect with my besties to just have them hold space for me. I got my supplements, I've got my progesterone. And some months are easier than other months. It's a really interesting journey. But what I do know for sure that, whether I have a more moodier day or not, that I do have a lot of tools in my toolbox to help
Right.
to support me. And I just have to really, I do a body scan every morning and every night to just check in with where I'm at and, really have that mind body connection so that I can pivot based on what is going on. I mean, there are even some nights where Alex just takes over the entire nighttime routine. When you're talking about a 3-year-old, it's like a 3-hour endeavor. Dinner and bath and running around naked around the house, trying to get them brushing their teeth and the whole thing. And so it's one thing after the other. And there are definitely some days where I don't have the bandwidth. And so I'm very grateful that my husband will take over that for me and
What?
let me just be in the sauna.
and that you're honoring that, right? And then, like
Yeah.
you said, more tools in the toolbox. Now you're giving a big summit coming up on
Yes.
perimenopause, and
Whew.
I would love for you to share with our audience, first of all, how they can connect with you, because your social media is great. I've, been following you for years and seen I love your messaging. I love how you show up very authentically, good days and bad days, and
Yep.
you share that. I think that's so important. And also, the about the your
The
website
event.
and your summit
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, so Dr. Mariza on Insta, Drmariza. I have a podcast that you were literally just on. The conversation was so good. It's energized with Dr. Mariza because I know I want to do embody what so many of us would love more of, even me. I would love more of it to feel more energized always. And my mom used to always say, like, I don't care how much energy I got, I could use a little bit more. And so I think all women feel that way to some degree. And then my
Absolutely.
summit, yeah, it's the Thriving in Perimenopause and Menopause Summit. So I'm literally all women in midlife, and I'm in it, and I'm in it. So I'm in the lived experience. It's deeply personal to me. The brain changes are real, the mood changes are real, even trauma coming up. Like it can feel like a reckoning for so many women. The underlying thing that I hear from women is I just don't feel like myself anymore. Like
Mhm.
so, we really dig into that and address that the metabolic piece, the cardiovascular concern, even the brain fog or the lack of word recall, HRT and breast cancer, or just the different varieties of HRT, like what's available, what's the real truth around it, how do we navigate a very big conversation. So I really did, not only for my own just wanting to discover and figure out what is the right path for me, but also for the 27 million women that are in peri and the over 50 million people that are in menopause here in the US alone, not, let alone the almost a million women a billion women in menopause worldwide. And so I wanted to make sure that I really answered a lot of the most pressing questions that women had about this profound transition and how they want to feel in menopause and beyond. And so that's what this event is. It's 50 talks. It's you, it's Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, it's Dr. Casey Means, Dr. Mindy Pels, JJ Virgin. Oh my gosh, Dr. Taz. There's so many people. Dr. Carrie Jones. I mean, I cover the gamut of everybody to make sure
That's so
that
good.
everyone get their questions answered. Yeah.
And then again, deep dives into specific topics that really relate to us midlife.
Yes.
And that's
And
that's
vulnerable
important. Knowledge is
conversations.
power.
Yeah.
So
I
that
wanted,
link,
mhm.
oh, I'm going to give that link. It's dranna.com/Peri Summit, PERI Summit. So dranna.com/Peri Summit. And what are the dates that's live and it's free
Yeah.
for you guys
It's
to
free.
register and listen? Yes.
Yes, it's free. It goes live on October 14th to 18th. You get to pick and choose every day, has a theme, and you get to literally pick and choose what you need, what you're needing right now. Get what you need. That the goal of those talks is to get very actionable strategies that you can begin to implement today. And also hear raw and vulnerable stories from women who have been in it, who have also taken care of thousands of women in midlife and in menopause.
I love it. I love it, you guys. So just definitely check out Dr. Maritza on social media and also go to dranna.com/Perry Summit now to sign up for this course. And I think that one of the biggest, messages are that, we don't have to settle. We don't have to suffer through. And so a couple quick questions. What's your favorite
Yeah.
way to increase oxytocin, Maritza?
Ooh, cuddling with my baby, cuddling with
Yes.
Kingston. It's the best. I make sure to do that many times a day.
I love it. And what are you reading? What's a favorite book you've read recently?
Ooh, so so When the Moon Hatched by, oh gosh, her last name, I don't, it's Sarah. And then the Kindred Curse Saga by author Penn Cole. Those are two of my absolute favorite. Like if you want a sexy, real man book boyfriend, Luther in the Kindred Curse Saga, that's what's up.
That's
Yes.
what's up. That sounds good. A little bit of romance. I just finished reading God's Hotel, which is excellent. God's Hotel. So a little different themes for my books, but God's Hotel, which was incredible. And I'm reading about the Road because my travels to India just really embedded me into understanding the um, history and the journey that so many thousands of years our entire economy has been built on. So that's where I'm at. But I'm going to pick up in between those, I read some fantasy books. My daughter Amira always gives me some of her dragon books and her fantasy books.
Yes.
And it's good. But
Yes.
that ritual, right? Bath, bed, and bath, book, and bed for like our kids, right? Same thing for us. And it's so
Same
important
thing
we
for
keep the
us. Think of
kids on
yourself as a
that ritual.
toddler.
Yes.
He's been my greatest lesson, my greatest teacher. I'm like, wait, we do this for toddlers every day. And how did we lose our way? Like we need the bath, we need the reading, we need someone to turn the lights off. Like we need, you know what I'm saying? It's just, I was like, these routines are meant to support their little brains, make sure they get enough sleep. And I was like, interesting how we kind of lost that as an
Right,
adult.
right. We got to take that back. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Marisa, for joining us today on the Girlfriend Doctor show.
Mhm.
I love talking with you and I love what you're doing and all the information and the really the passion and the joy that you bring to this time of life for everyone. It is a solution, right? There are
Oh
solutions
yeah.
and we don't have to suffer. So
Mhm.
thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys have fallen in love with Marisa as much as I have. She is a wealth of information and she is, again, so authentic and sincere about helping you. So, helping you on your journey. And, as much as we know, sometimes we need that hand holding through. There's always more information to learn, and knowledge is power, as I always say. With my program, Magic Menopause, we hand hold you through the methods, the process, the practices that empower us. And then with Maritza Summit, you guys get deep dive into specific areas that are really pertinent to you that you're dealing with right now. I'll be listening and I hope you will be too. Let me know, please comment on this podcast. Let me know what you like, what your next right step is. I love hearing from you and I love being your girlfriend doctor. So till next time, this is Dr. Anna Cabeca.